What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. And the first news story is a pretty big surprise to me. Did you know that the Toyota FJ Cruiser was still in production? I had no clue. I thought it was dead a long time ago. It was discontinued here in the United States in 2014. Apparently it lived on in Australia for 2 more years, and it has continued to live on in Saudi Arabia for all of these years since. And the 2023 model year will finally be the last year for the FJ Cruiser in Saudi Arabia. And so they announced that there's this final edition limited to 1,000 units that will be sending it out with. And so there's no pictures of this edition, but they say it'll get beige paint, upholstery, and trim on the inside. So everything's beige, basically, along with black trim on the outside. So kind of a desert kind of vibe, which is very cool. And so yeah, I just cool for those in Saudi Arabia. But it makes me wonder if they were still building this vehicle, and it was basically unchanged, by the way, both on the outside and on the inside. Why didn't Toyota follow the same formula that they did with the 4Runner, Tacoma, all those types of vehicles, where they just, if they sell well, just keep selling them? And it's kind of strange that for the FJ Cruiser, Toyota decided not to do that, even though it's been a proven winning formula for many of their other trucks in the lineup. And especially considering the used values that FJ Cruisers are holding here. I mean, they're commanding very high prices still. It just seems like a huge missed opportunity. And I just thought that it's been, dead a long time ago, and all the tooling and all the production stuff was long gone. But it turns out, they were still building them here. And so that's what makes this a head scratcher as far as why we never got it here in the States or continue to get it here in the States. It surely can't even be about crash standards or anything like that, because again, you had the ancient Toyota models that just got little updates along the way, but were basically the same as well. So I don't know why they didn't continue to offer it here. It was really surprising for me. I had no clue that the FJ Cruiser was still being produced. So you learn something new every day. But anyway, so interesting to hear that. It's a shame though that Toyota missed out on an easy moneymaker, in my opinion, here in the States. But final editions are the theme here for like the first half of this weekly update. Tons of final editions, vehicles going away, sadly. So we'll get into the first one here. The first one is the final edition for the Mercedes-AMG E63S. So this was previously announced for Europe back in May, but thanks to my dealer source, I'm able to confirm we will be getting some of these here in the United States, which is rare. Usually we don't get any of these. And so my dealer source confirmed they'll be sending 150 of the sedans from the 999 global production run. So 150 of those sedans we'll be getting here in the States, along with 150 of the wagons from its 999 production run, I believe, as well. So, and they also added we'll be getting 100 units of the C63's final edition here in the States as well. But it's sad to see that the V8 is likely gone for good in not only the C-Class, but also the E-Class. I somehow missed the news about the E63 going away previously back in May, but it's really a bummer because, I had a little bit of hope that maybe it would continue on with, the larger engines, but it sounds like, if they're getting rid of it the same way they are with the C63, then, I'm assuming we'll get the same powertrain from this new C63 in the new E63, meaning, a turbo 4-cylinder, along with the hybrid thing for, again, a very E63 appropriate, that does like over 660 horsepower or whatever. Crazy numbers, but, an E-Class with a 4-cylinder for the AMG, and the top AMG at that, is crazy. And, but just, at least I guess there still is the twin turbo V8 and the AMG GT, sedan and stuff. So there's other options for now, but, anyway, very interesting to hear about that final edition, though. Very cool they're sending it. Of course, it has the special little touches, the little, unique look to it, but, otherwise it's basically the same as any other E63. But very special, and just sad to see the E63s go. In other sad performance news here, Audi has finally confirmed that the R8 and its V10 engine are being discontinued here with the announcement of the 2023 R8 GT. The GT name makes a comeback from the first generation models, final edition that it had, but this time it seems more final, as it sounds like the R8 won't be getting a third generation, and this is the end for the Lamborghini V10. And so for this R8 GT, though, it uses rear-wheel drive combined with a more powerful V10 tune from the all-wheel drive models, meaning 602 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque, running through a 7-speed dual clutch. Even without the all-wheel drive, though, it'll still do a 3.4 second 0 to 62 mile per hour time. It's also 44 pounds lighter than a regular rear-wheel drive R8, thanks to lighter forged wheels and carbon ceramic brakes. plus seats and a front anti-roll bar made from carbon fiber reinforced plastic. Other distinguishing features here are the carbon fiber aero body kit you see here with the wing and all that. There's a black and red interior trim bits, and it'll also get a numbered badge on the inside. 333 of these will be built globally, but there's no info yet on whether any of them will be coming to the US. But once those are built, it sounds like it's going to be a long time before we get another Audi supercar, because Car and Driver sources just this week were reporting that the next supercar from Audi will be an electric vehicle, which isn't a surprise there, but they supposedly it'll be called R Next, and they say that it won't be arriving until 2029 supposedly. So we got a long time to wait for a new supercar from Audi, unfortunately. So when it does arrive, the sources also claim that Lamborghini and Bentley will get vehicles on the same platform in the early 2030s. So there's talk of, convertible and 2+2s. I would guess the Bentley will get the 2+2 setup, and then the coupe and convertible could again be the Audi and the Lamborghini side by side. That does line up too, because, obviously we know the Huracan replacement and the Aventador replacement will still keep the gas engines and the hybridized thing. But into the 2030s, they're going to have to look at, introducing some fully electric supercars. And so it sounds like, the Audi might help them out a little bit with that as well. So crazy though, there's going to be most of the 2020s here, there won't be a new Audi supercar on sale. Obviously they have supercar performing numbers in, all the other RS models and stuff like that. And of course we do know the electric stuff that's coming, the electric RS stuff most likely that's coming will, be super fast and all that. So it's not like they're going to be lacking from a performance standpoint, just from a halo car, ooh, look at this cool, supercar type thing, as far as from that standpoint. But anyway, very interesting to hear that, and sad to see the R8 go. Such another just awesome vehicle, and that V10 engine and stuff is going to live on in infamy. It's going to be, just such a special car, all these R8s and the Huracans and Gallardos before them and all that. So anyway, but interesting to hear that. And that's not all the news, though, from Audi and the special editions here. So there's also the TTRS Iconic Edition that Audi is using to send off the TT, which is also finally, making an exit after many rumors and lots of back and forth of, is it going to survive, is it not? This will supposedly be the end of the TT as well. And this one's even more rare, only 100 being made for Europe and the UK. And mechanically, it's the same as any other TTRS, but it does get the Nardo gray paint, the carbon fiber aero kit with similar styling to it, like the R8's kit there, with other little accents all around as well. And it'll definitely be rare, but I honestly wonder if they'll sell all 100 of these things, considering they're charging over 40,000 euros over what a regular TTRS would cost for an aero kit that, yes, it's carbon fiber, but an aero kit and some trim touches, and that's it. No boost to the performance or anything like that. 40,000 euros, which means that basically when you compare the pricing, this puts it at the same starting price as a Porsche 911. Which, the TT is cool, but it's always been a Cayman competitor, not a 911 competitor. You can get a Cayman GT4 for, this kind of money, maybe even a little bit less. So it's a tough sell, even for this Iconic Edition. Of course, there's the, handful of Audi fans with blank checkbooks that'll, probably buy some of these, but I really honestly wonder if 100 people are even going to go for essentially just a $40,000 more expensive TTRS. But anyway, cool to see them sending it off here, but also another vehicle. It's very sad to see it go. And, we'll see if Audi has any plans to do any kind of two-doors. In the meantime, aside from, I'm hoping the A5 and the S5 continue on, but with, the, lower amount of people that are continuing to buy two-doors, who knows about these companies and offering any kind of two-doors at all going forward. So anyway, but very interesting to hear that too. And Ford has also revealed a final edition for the GT supercar. This is the GT-LM edition. So it celebrates the 2016 Le Mans victory, and they're only making 20 of these, and those will end the 1,350 car run for the GT, I believe. And so mechanically, they're the same as the other GTs, and they're all liquid silver for this edition, but you get to choose either red or blue for the accents, which extend to the color tinting on the carbon fiber around the car, along with the inner barrel of the wheels. The driver's seat will also be done up in either red or blue. And one last cool touch is that the GTLM badge there on the dashboard will be 3D printed from powder that was made from when they ground down the crankshaft from the third place Le Mans car, which apparently that engine was just sitting disassembled on a shelf in a Ford location somewhere. And so they decided to use it, so I guess they have no plans of ever, bringing back that third place car, and so they just ground it down and made it, material for 3D printing, which is actually really cool, honestly. A very, very creative thing. It's just very, very cool. So anyway, deliveries of those will be beginning this fall, and GT production will sadly be ending by the end of this year. So another chapter closing here for Ford and their supercar. Who knows if we'll ever see another Ford supercar, honestly. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, very interesting to see that. And for the last story about something ending this week here, New York this week announced a law similar to California's, requiring all new vehicles to be zero emissions by 2035. But it's important to note, though, that New York classifies plug-in hybrids as zero emissions vehicles as well. So currently, unless there's more clarification that comes out down the road, as of right now, the 2035 ban does not apply to plug-in hybrids. So plug-in hybrids will still be able to stick around. So you'll still have a gas-propelled vehicle allowed to be sold brand new in 2035. In that way. And obviously, as we've seen even with the German companies already, where they have these plug-in hybrids that have 7 miles of electric range, you can kind of skirt around that. As long as it has a plug in it and a battery the size of a smartphone, you can probably pass it off as a plug-in hybrid and continue to carry on with whatever it is you want to make. So as long as you're willing to pay the CAFE fines and stuff, they can potentially do that. So, this isn't still the end of the world for the gas-powered car enthusiast or anything like that. But, just be prepared that, New York is following California, but all the ZEV states will most likely make similar announcements here over the next few months. And so that means that, I believe there's 14 states total that are ZEV states. So a large amount of the United States will be having this 2035 mandate. But if they all have this exception for plug-in hybrids, then again, that kind of softens the blow a little bit in my mind versus, just completely getting rid of anything that burns gasoline whatsoever. And I think the plug-in hybrid thing is a more realistic stepping stone as well to kind of build in some forgiveness there in case the charging infrastructure isn't great. And in case, apartment dwellers and people that don't have garages and driveways, they'll be able to buy a new car still that works with their lifestyle. And even if they have to, tote around a battery that they very rarely use, at least, it's not, inconveniencing a bunch of people that have to be forced to go to fast chargers if the infrastructure isn't quite there by 2035. But of course, with this announcement, New York's also announcing a bunch of investments in their charging infrastructure and improving all those types of things as well. So hopefully all that stuff will ramp up, to go along with that. But it's also important to note that these standards are also ramping up gradually. So the 2035 thing, it's not like it's nothing and then everything in 2035. So before 2035, starting in 2026, 35% of new vehicles will have to be these zero emissions vehicles, which again includes plug-in hybrids. So that's just over 3 years away from when 35% of every vehicle sold by a manufacturer has to be, electric or plug-in hybrid, in the state of New York, and also California, I think, has similar ramp-ups like this. And then beyond that, in 2030, it'll have to be 68% of all vehicles sold new. And so, very interesting to hear that. But I think the plug-in hybrid is a key, component there that really helps to make this more realistic and also a little less upsetting. So anyway, very interesting to hear that. Speaking of EVs, though, Honda this week has revealed the 2024 Prologue, which is their first mainstream EV in America. And so right now we don't have too many specs for it here, but we do know it's built on GM's Ultium platform, so it's safe to assume it'll likely get similar motor setups to the Blazer EV, aside from maybe the 567 horsepower SS setup. I don't know if we'll be getting that unless they dare to put the Type R name on, something like this. It's most likely, if they do have that SS setup, it'll probably be saved for the Acura version and it getting a Type S model, because I think they already did, tease a ZDX Type S. So that will probably get this thing, but I'm doubting the Honda will get, a setup with that much power. But anyway, I'll link my coverage to the Blazer weekly update if you're wanting to, hear all the details and specs on that platform and what's going to be offered. It'll be available with a bunch of different setups, including not only just an all-wheel drive version, but also front and rear-wheel drive versions. We'll see, again, what Honda filters out and what they end up, sticking with for the Honda version. But lots of, potential options and combinations and all that. So other stuff here about this is that the wheelbase is identical to the Blazer, though. So, it should be very similar. That makes its wheelbase 8 inches longer than the new CR-V, by the way, and it's also 5 inches wider. So it will be a nice step up from the CR-V size-wise, and kind of, I think they said it's going to be kind of sold alongside the Passport size-wise as far as, how it's classified and stuff. It's certainly more traditional looking than the Blazer, though, so I think that'll actually help Honda's case. If people really like the platform and the packaging, but they, want something a little less bold, they can go for this instead. And we also do get a look at the inside here, and it's an interesting mix of some Honda design touches, but other things that appear to be taken from GM, like the climate control setup and buttons, the steering wheel buttons, the gauge cluster, and even that 11.3-inch touchscreen. Although it's tilted towards the driver and it's in a different enclosure in the Chevys, I believe that is the same screen as the GM stuff, because the way they have the menu structure there with the little shortcuts on the left hand side there, that is the same as the Hummer EV press vehicle that I have this week, actually. So I think the structure of the menus is actually going to be the same, aside from, Honda will give it a reskinning for the different look and all that. But just be prepared, this isn't going to be 100% Honda as far as every single little button and, obviously the platform and everything else. So we do know that Honda's fully engineered by Honda EV, I believe, is coming sometime after 2025, they said. So they are working on their own stuff, but in the meantime, they didn't want to be waiting around and missing out on market share. And so that's why they kind of, partnered up with GM to get this out sooner, I believe. And so anyway, and although this is a 2024 model year vehicle, it sounds like it won't actually arrive until the 2024 calendar year. So going to be towards the end of that 2024 model year cycle there. But anyway, very interesting to see that, and looking forward to, hearing more about it down the road. And after basically fully revealing the new Maserati GranTurismo at Pebble Beach just a few weeks back, Maserati this week officially debuted the exterior of the car and gave us most of the details on not only the electric Fulgore version, but also on the Modena and Trofeo gas versions. Strangely, though, they're still keeping the interior a secret, which I don't understand, because it's not like it's going to be a big mystery. Like, it'll be a blend most likely of the MC20 and the Curcale, probably. It'll be very nice, and I mean, it's a two-door coupe, so there's not a whole lot of flexibility there as far as what you're doing. So anyway, the interior is going to be a big surprise until later on for some reason. But moving on here, even though the styling is evolutionary here, it's entirely new from the ground up, they say. It doesn't share a single part with the old car. As for the powertrain choices, Maserati says they're offering both gas and EV to let buyers decide, and said they can scale production higher or lower for each depending on demand, but they didn't want to influence the customer's decision and choice, which I think is commendable. This is the same approach that Toyota is taking, really, with offering gas, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and now EVs. And I think Maserati doing the same thing here makes a lot of sense. If everyone wants the super fast electric thing, we have that for them. If they want something that's more traditional, we have that as well. And let people decide, at least until the laws dictate you can't. But until that point, put both out there and see what happens. I think that's great to, let the market decide, what they want, and do that as long as you can afford to. And so anyway, one thing that buyers won't be able to decide on, unfortunately, is the wheels that are driven, because all GranTurismos are now all-wheel drive. They say they did this to expand the GranTurismo's appeal in places where weather isn't always nice. So I think they're really hoping for more sales here with this new one. And it just makes sense to broaden the appeal, but it is going to, mean that it's going to change the character of the vehicle as far as driving dynamics. And, it obviously is going to make it heavier too, but not like, Maseratis are too worried about being super light. And they do say this is a rear bias all-wheel drive system, and it can send up to 100% of the power to the back if needed. I don't know if there's going to be a rear-wheel drive mode. That would be nice, but I wouldn't, hold your breath for it. Maybe in the Trofeo version or something. And so the lineup starts with the Modena, which uses the 3-liter twin-turbo V6 from the MC20, but with a less aggressive tunes that only does 490 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque compared to the 621 horsepower the MC20 does. The Trofeo version, though, uses the same engine but bumps it up to 550 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. They both run through an 8-speed automatic, which is likely from ZF, but I didn't see them specify. The Modena will do a 3.9 seconds 0 to 60 though, and that drops to 3.5 seconds for the Trofeo. So very solid acceleration for vehicles with only 550 horsepower. It's going to be pretty solid with the performance numbers there. And the motor is also front mid mounted for better handling, and it has also a 52 to 48 front rear weight distribution. So should be pretty well set up. It's going to be weighing 3,957 pounds. And then there's the electric Fulgore version. That gets a 3-motor setup, 1 for the front and 2 for the rear. And altogether, they can put out potentially 1,207 horsepower. But the front and rear motors don't peak with their power band at the same time. So when they're working together, the max power they can do at the same time is 751 horsepower and 996 pound-feet of torque. So that's like conservative, but depending on, the situation situation, it might feel a little punchier than even that. And I mean, also 1,000 pound-feet of torque basically is, I mean, this thing's gonna fly. So they say it'll do a hypercar like 2.7 seconds 0 to 60 here, and still does a top speed of 198 miles per hour as well, which is also notable because a lot of electric vehicles don't have high top speed. So the fact this thing almost hits 200 still also is very impressive. It uses an 800-volt electrical system and a 92.5 kilowatt-hour battery, and it can max out at a 270 kilowatt charge rate. And unlike other EVs that use a skateboard platform that requires the vehicle to be a little bit higher, Maserati actually made a T-bone shaped battery that runs through the transmission tunnel and into the trunk. And so they did this so that they can still have the same ride height, still have the same roofline, and not have it be any higher or have any weird design changes. It's basically still using the same chassis, same body as the regular, gas versions. It does sacrifice a little bit of rear trunk space, they said, but they did say that the trunk in these new GranTurismos is larger overall as well. So, maybe it negates some of those gains, but it shouldn't be any worse than a current generation GranTurismo trunk, I'm assuming. But they also said that it's going to be getting a better 50-50 weight distribution here for the electric version as well. So they were able to, space those batteries and motors out so that it's, nicely distributed there, nice and evenly. But that's probably where the handling advantages end, because the Fulgore weighs about 1,000 pounds heavier, weighing nearly almost 5,000 pounds, they say here, which is just crazy. And they all get various degrees of beefy Brembo brakes to slow them down. They're also all on an air suspension as well, so it should be a nice comfortable ride, but also be a little bit sportier, especially in that Trofeo version, I'm assuming. And so deliveries will begin in the second quarter here of 2023, and prices will start around $200,000, they said, which is pricey, definitely higher than the past GranTurismo, but again, considering everything is new and also just inflation, everything like that, and the fact that people that are buying these probably don't care too much about price, hopefully, it'll be a good seller for them. They also did add that the Grand Cabrio, convertible version will also be following sometime next year. So anyway, a really solid, improvement there. I think it's great. It's awesome to even see them continue to sell this, considering, again, two-doors are getting more and more rare. Maybe something like this will now be able to benefit from some of the lost market share that Mercedes is giving up by getting rid of the S-Class, coupes and things like that. Maserati can kind of swoop in and maybe, convert some of those customers. We'll have to see, but anyway, very interesting to see that. And the last new vehicle that debuted this week was the Alpine A110R, which we don't get here in America, but for those in Europe, it's a huge upgrade, so I want to cover it briefly. So first, the engine retains the same tune as the S version, which got bumped to 300 horsepower from that little 1.8-liter Turbo 4 that's mid-mounted. But the focus for this one is on handling, and it gets not only a retuned suspension with adjustable shocks, but also it lost a bunch of weight, now coming in at just 2,385 pounds, thanks to a carbon fiber hood, wheels, and even the rear window has been replaced by a piece of carbon fiber, which shows they really went all out with this thing to make it, pretty extreme. It also now uses one-piece carbon fiber racing seats, also, again, part of that extreme experience. And it also gets a new aero kit to help improve downforce and reduce drag. And the last thing they did to spice it up here is they removed the valve in the exhaust, so the system is now always in its loud mode, which is a great improvement. And so there's no pricing for these yet, but it's very cool to see them show the A110 any love at all, considering it's been out for a little while, and it's just cool to see that they're continuing to improve it here. And also another vehicle that's getting a little bit of an improvement here for 2023 is the Lexus LC 500, which is another vehicle that with each passing year I'm just thankful continues to stick around. Again, a small market again for these two-door ultra luxury coupes and stuff, and they're keeping it around. That's great news on its own, but they're more than just keeping it around with these improvements. So for 2023, they've retuned the suspension to enhance ground contact feel, linear steering response, and steering effectiveness in the high cornering G range. So I believe that kind of means, at the limit handling should be improved a little bit for those who really do push their LC 500s. And while the LC 500 is definitely on the softer side, it's still a lot of fun on a back road. And I think that kind of adds to the fun experience, the fact that it's a little looser. I absolutely love the week I had with the 500 convertible. It was so much fun. They also say that the sport package is still offered, and it takes it one step further here this year with new 21-inch forged wheels. There's also this new Cloudburst gray color, and the convertible soft top is now lighter. They didn't explain how, but hopefully it's still nice and quiet and all of that. And the 2023 LC 500s will start arriving in dealers in November, so coming pretty soon here. And so just great to see a nice little improvement, and still keep my fingers crossed for an LCF. Hopefully down the road we'll see what happens, but great to see a nice little enhancement here. Motor Trend this week got to speak with Toyota's CEO at a dealer conference, and during this interview, he actually revealed to them that the Crown will be getting a plug-in hybrid version here in the United States. Over in Japan, the Crown there's several different versions of the Crown, or it's a whole like sub-brand over there for Toyota they're planning on rolling out here. And there's going to be, the hybrids, plug-in hybrids, even electric versions of Crowns over there coming eventually. But here in the States, we just had, our one Crown with its hybrid setups, and that's it. But now we are told here by the CEO himself that it'll be getting a plug-in hybrid version. Now, he didn't reveal what kind of plug-in hybrid it would be. And this is where, it's going to be a little tricky from a branding perspective because, the easy choice would be just use the RAV4 Prime setup, 302 horsepower. But, some might object to the Prime name being used on something that isn't the most powerful version of the Crown, because there's already the Hybrid Max version of the Crown that's going to be coming here with 340 horsepower as the top trim. So, they could certainly still have the Prime, and Prime doesn't necessarily have to mean it's the absolute top version. Hybrid Max also is top. I mean, it could just be a little bit confusing, but they could totally just do that. That's probably the most likely scenario, but there also could be potential for a different type of plug-in hybrid that's coming, or just a rebranding of that system to something other than Prime, at least for the Crown. Or they could just have a new system, since the Crown is like kind of the top of the Toyota range in a lot of ways now. Having it introduce new technologies and a new advanced system would also be cool to see as well. But considering this vehicle's softer setup, I don't expect them to do any kind of crazy power beyond the 340 horsepower and something like this. It just, doesn't seem like it would fit with the vehicle's personality. So, we'll have to see what they end up doing there, but, it makes a lot of sense. Again, the more plug-in hybrids, the better, especially with, again, these new laws that are coming here down the road. And so great that, they're going to be offering that, and cool of the CEO to just kind of let that, news slip here and, put it out there for us instead of, keeping it a secret. So cool to hear that. And another interesting thing this week is a few months ago, we got news about how Volkswagen was going to be reviving the Scout name that they got from International Harvester, and they're going to use that for basically a Jeep and Bronco competitor. And so this week, a prominent member of the vintage Scout community, Jeff Bade, was able to spend an afternoon with the Scout Motors team and learn about their plans for this new electric Scout. They're doing a normal like Wrangler setup kind of thing, and then also a truck, kind of like a Gladiator, I'm assuming. And so, but it'll be all electric, and I covered that again many months ago. But as far as his impressions here, he kind of just wrote out a little paragraph of his thoughts, and he said they saw some early prototypes, and overall he came away with nothing more than excitement, and said the team is passionate about making these new Scouts awesome. He also said they saw a video that was shown to them that made every hair on his arm stand up, and that everyone in the room was in awe, concluding, in his opinion, it was better than the best Super Bowl ad he's ever seen. So, very strong, encouragement that this is on the right track, from these, diehard Scout fans in this community. And I mean, obviously he says it's not going to be a 40-year-old vehicle that's, updated. It's going to be an all new thing. And so there will be some changes there, but, supposedly it's going to, be pretty faithful to, the brand, and be something that, I guess the Scout fan base should appreciate. So he said it's still early in development, so things could change, and some stuff wasn't decided yet, but they're aiming to offer it at an affordable price point. Affordable is, again, a completely relative term. So, who knows, I'm guessing it'll probably land somewhere around Bronco pricing would be my guess, but if it's electric, it could even have a premium over Bronco and Wrangler as well. So we'll have to see, but the word affordable being thrown around, at least a little encouraging, but, we'll see how much that actually turns out to be true. He also said that they value history, community, and the aftermarket, so expect lots of customization options, and I'm assuming a similar approach to what Jeep has, with really, investing in the community, really supporting that community, supporting the aftermarket, and just offering a ton of, accessories on their own as well. And so, obviously everyone wants to have Jeep or a Jeep-like brand in their portfolio. Super diehard fans. You have, just a huge active community that's very supportive, that pays huge premiums for, these vehicles. I mean, Jeep is worth so much money, and it's probably the most valuable asset of the Stellantis brand, and part of why that merger even happened with FCA and, Peugeot and all that. So, I mean, I think, Volkswagen sees some big dollar signs here as well if they can get it right. And it sounds like they're taking the time and the money and getting the team together to get it right and hopefully have, a Jeep type brand on their hands, in the next couple of decades here. So, other things here that he added was that, while it may share some technology, knowledge, and suppliers with Volkswagen Auto Group, he said that it will not be a rebrand or a variation of anything else in the Volkswagen Group, and that it'll have a unique platform and not be on any of these, Volkswagen EV skateboard, platforms that they're developing for all these various different cars and stuff. It won't be one of those, which is good because I don't think one of those would work very well if you're looking for something with, a ton of ground clearance and all that, and lots of suspension travel and everything. So he did say it will, of course, be very capable off-road, and says it will be true to its name and roots, but they also need to make it profitable and also have mass appeal as well, because I believe Volkswagen has said they're hoping to eventually sell about 250,000 of these a year, which is big hopes. I don't even know if they could do that many Broncos, even if they could actually keeping up with demand. But, they got, like I said, big dreams for these, and so we'll see about that. But, that means there's going to be some concessions made for that mass appeal as well. He said it won't please everyone in every way, but should, be something that the fans do really enjoy. And so he said, or he didn't say this, but it's been previously reported that they'll be revealing prototypes sometime next year. So there's still a while to wait because that's just when they're revealing prototypes. Supposedly these won't start production until around 2026 is the estimate that I saw out there. So we'll see about that, how long it takes to get these things to market. But it sounds like it's really promising as far as the team and, their approach and everything. So that actually made me a little bit more excited for these as well, hearing all that info. So very cool of Jeff for sharing that, and thanks for the info, Jeff. And moving on here, Chinese automotive giant Geely, which already owns a majority stake in Lotus, Volvo, and Polestar, along with their own other brands, they announced this week that they've invested over $8 billion into Aston Martin. But this only represents a 7.6% stake in the company, so not a majority stake. They're not taking over Aston Martin or anything like that. So don't expect Aston Martin to really change. This is mostly just much needed financing for them. Obviously, though, this does show that Geely is interested and in the brand, obviously, to dump this much money into them. And it's possible they will start investing more, and maybe they will eventually take over Aston Martin, add it along with Lotus and Volvo and Polestar, which are three brands that are awesome, and I think they are on the right track in many ways. So we'll see what they end up doing here with Aston Martin and how they contribute. But all they've said officially is that we look forward to exploring potential opportunities to engage and collaborate with Aston Martin as it continues to execute its strategy to achieve long-term sustainable growth and increase profitability. So now they have a working relationship, though. We'll see what happens. They could partner up with other car brands more now. Like, for example, we have the Lotus Electra, their electric SUV, which has, very impressive specs and very, very fast. And if Aston Martin wants to, start their transition into the electric thing, the easy way to do that is make the next DBX electric. And here you go. You now have a platform developed by Geely here for this Lotus, and also Lotus's engineers have put a lot of input and development into it as well. And Lotus makes incredible cars, so if they can, kind of work together with Aston Martin and their engineers and team up. Also, we do know that Aston Martin has, Mercedes and that technical partnership as far as electrification, abilities and things. So it might be a blend of stuff. We'll see what ends up happening. But in the meantime, just good to see that Aston Martin's continuing to get, some financial support, which they desperately need. And so this is great to, keep the company strong and viable. And so anyway, great to hear that. And for the last news story here this week, we have a few little updates here on some upcoming Tesla products. So first, Elon Musk tweeted that the Cybertruck this week should finally start production next year, and added that when it does, it now will also be waterproof enough to serve briefly as a boat, so it can cross rivers, lakes, and even seas that aren't too choppy. And this, of course, was immediately responded to by, and very problematic just in general to say something like this. And so the Washington State Department of Natural Resources responded that anything that serves briefly as a boat should not be used as a boat. And so I can already imagine all the viral videos of, people driving their Cybertrucks into the lake or, the ocean or whatever, and getting into trouble with that. So I'll be prepared for floating Cybertrucks on a beach near you in the next couple of years. But it's also one little thing I have to add is, if you remember a few years back, Tesla, and Elon Musk is a huge fan of James Bond, and he bought the Lotus Esprit that was the submarine converted into a submarine in the Roger Moore film. And, there was an Easter egg there in the Tesla where you could bring up a screen in the infotainment system to have that Esprit. And so now, he can potentially have a Tesla vehicle that actually will go underwater, even if it's unintentionally. And so maybe in a roundabout way, he will, fulfill a dream in that way. So anyway, also along with this, Musk also tweeted that the first semis will be delivered on December 1st to Pepsi, and Tesla also added that 2023 will supposedly also be the year that the Roadster finally gets put into production, which is all great, but we've heard, timelines and target dates for all this stuff in the past. Now, if the Semi actually is preparing to be delivered on December 1st, that sounds like it's pretty close to reality, and, that actually is probably going to happen. The Roadster, though, we'll just have to see about that one. I know there's not a huge rush for that either because, obviously they have bigger things to, worry about and trying to do the mass appeal and the mass market stuff. But that'd be great if the Roadster finally does arrive, but again, do not hold your breath for that in 2023. And lastly, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you who are members of the Matt Moran Motoring Club. So we did have one new member join this week, so I want to give a huge thank you to Tomas for becoming a member this week. I hope you're enjoying all the perks, and I really appreciate the support. So thank you so much for becoming a member. For anyone else that would like to become a member and join the channel here, there's going to be a link in the description, as well as join buttons here on the video page and on the channel page if you're interested in joining. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.